Great Writers Media.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, join us as we welcome a fantastic author. Her name is A.M. Bunny, and she has written an enthralling book. It's called Secrets of a Secretary: Husbands, Lovers, and Associates, a humorous and nostalgic look at love, power, and 80s British office politics. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Great Writers Media for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her wonderful book. The links are below the interview. Alex, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to talk to you. And hello to all your viewers and listeners.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the pleasure is all mine. I'm sure they're excited to hear from you today. Tell us about your book, Secrets of a Secretary. Is this a little biographical here, or tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I suppose it's fiction ever fiction. You've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of truth in it. Obviously, I'm much older now, so as the cover will show the readers, it's got lovely long legs of a secretary, something I not really have anymore. But the Secrets of a Secretary, it's about an attractive secretary whose naivety would get the better of her, and however, as time evolved, she started to use her life experiences to her advantage. And she became an expert at extracting information from the higher echelons of society, as well as those in the underworld. And she'd pass any necessary intelligence using her shorthand, which I still use a little bit, onto her bosses, who were some good, some bad, and some very indifferent. And the book is based, it's a short book, and I've written it in short chapters. And each one is based on a Bond-type villain whose paranoia would get the better of them. And the secretary finally uses all her intelligence she's gathered and plots her revenge in the end. As to why someone would want to read it, quite simply, to everybody, always trust your gut instinct. And there is some truth in that, because I've always questioned things. In fact, I think I should have always been called Why, because I've always grown up going, why is this, why is that? And I've never reacted to it, or I have reacted to it, and I've been to professionals and people, but they've never wanted to listen to what I've had to say. So I decided to write my memoir.
Well, I'm glad you wrote the book. It's a wonderful book. The 80s don't seem that long ago, but it's hard to believe the 80s were 40 years ago now. And it was kind of like the last hurrah of crazy office stuff happening. I mean,
hurrah! There's a military thing there for you.
Yeah, but there wasn't. I mean, today everybody, is remote. They're on computers. I'm sure there's very little flirtation in the office nowadays because everything is so politically correct. But in the 80s, it was a different story. People were dating each other, and there were office romances and drinking in the office, smoking in the office, kinds of.
I did. I was there.
Yeah, it was a crazy time.
And it was great in many ways, because the whole PC thing, I think, has gone crazy. And I think, I'm 52 now, and I really loathe technology. I know I'm talking to you now, but I struggle with it. And I don't believe a lot of what I read and see and hear in the media. And I think sometimes there's so much choice. I think back in the 80s, there was an element of surprise when you picked up a newspaper, or you were like, oh God, I didn't expect that. And it was enjoyable being a woman, in the sense that I think men and women are very different, and you're always going to have that sort of underlying sexual innuendo and that kind of thing. Whereas now, I think it's too crude. You can always hide behind a social media thing and say whatever you want. Whereas back then, you said it how it was. And there was a feeling of more honesty in some ways, even though I witnessed a lot of not great things.
Right.
And I had to keep my mouth shut. But you couldn't just suddenly say online, you know, God, he's going to do this, or God, I've just witnessed this, or I've just witnessed
Right.
some really big fraud. You know, you can't, you know, that didn't happen. But there was an element of, there was more truth about it in the 80s. And also the music and the, you know, I'm you know, loving the old fashioned adverts and the songs and
Yeah.
funny times. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The music
Yeah.
was unique. The clothing was unique.
Yeah.
It had a distinct flavor all of its own. You know, you had the 60s that had its flavor, the 70s, the 80s had a unique flavor as well.
It certainly did. Albeit that
Yeah,
I'm probably more of a 60s girl when it comes to my music. You sometimes feel that
right.
you were born in a different generation.
Right. Although you could probably listen to a little Rick Astley every now and then, just for,
I heard that
just for the fun of
in a
it.
film last night.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty
Yeah.
funny.
No, I'm
So
probably more of a Marilyn Monroe fan.
there you go. Tell us what it was like for you writing this book. Was this the first time you decided to write a book? What was it? Did it just
Oh,
flow? Tell us about the process.
that's a good question. I had a breakdown and I was pushed into a corner where no one would listen to me. And
Mm,
I reached out to people that I thought loved me or
mm,
wanted to help me, and everyone turned their back on me. And so I'm completely on my own, you know, no friends, no family. And
mm,
I decided, thought, right, okay, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to start using my shorthand again. And I decided to, I had it in my mind that I didn't want it to be too complex because there is a sequel in the sense that I could write a lot more, but I'm
mm.
not educated in that kind of way. I'm not what I would call a great author, and I probably don't speak English very well. But I wanted to write about some of the characters that I'd written, so I wanted to keep it short, but I also wanted to have an element of fun to it and laughter. And it was cathartic. There were some times that I was writing chapters and I would cry. I could fill an ocean with my tears because it brought back some very bad memories. And I suffered with PTSD, and I just, and then I'd have writer's block, and then you start again maybe 48 hours later, and I'd start another chapter. But as I started writing the book, my strength got better, if that makes sense, because I
Hmm.
was just like thinking, you so and so's, you know, I am not going to be beaten by you. And if anybody is going to break me, it's not going to be you. So I started writing with funny hints, tips, and I put a glossary in the back for women to read, albeit some of the men that have read the book have found it incredibly amusing. And yeah, so it was a cathartic process. It had mixed emotions writing the whole thing, and
Yeah.
I edited it and I did it all myself, and then put it into print. And I'm hoping that your listeners buy
I
it
hope so
so
too.
much.
It's a wonderful book. It's a wonderful
I've been seeking
story.
for the truth for a long time.
Yep. Now, I don't know if it made it across the pond, but we had a TV series here in America called Mad Men, which was about
Mm-hmm.
Don Draper, it was about the advertising industry in the 1960s. I think your book would make a great series about what office life was like in the 1980s. It'd be a kind of a cool period piece nowadays. You know, have you thought about it as a movie or perhaps as a TV series?
Well, I'm going to share something very positive with you. I have the readers would benefit from buying the book. I'm going to really try and flog this now because there's a script being written at the moment. Producers
Wonderful.
have been interested in Hollywood America about making the book into a film, so would allow your viewers or readers to understand the fundamental characters in the book or
Exactly.
where the story is going to evolve. So I'm really keeping my fingers crossed. Logan, I cannot tell you how much luck I need. I have lost everything.
Hmm.
So I'm hoping that some producers will love this, and that when the script, I haven't seen the script yet, it's sort of in the process at the moment, and see what happens. And maybe I could have a makeover and a whole facelift and look 40 years younger. Well, not quite, but 20.
Exactly. Exactly. So who would play the secretary in your movie? Do you have if you were to cast it as a
Oh
Hollywood
my
director?
gosh, that's a very good question. I
Mm.
have some ideas.
Okay.
Um, Should definitely have to be a money penny type character.
Mm-hmm.
But there are so many great actresses out there. I wouldn't even know where to begin. I couldn't even pinpoint a name.
How about, well, she's an American, if that's okay. Jennifer Lawrence?
Yes, she's a very good actress.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
And she brings kind of a humor to her roles also, which is great.
Yeah, I think that I think she'd be perfect.
Great, great. Okay, so that's
Maybe have
Hollywood
an
if you're
American,
listening.
maybe have an American spin on it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Like,
And then I
you
wouldn't be
never
giving the
know.
game away too
Sometimes they'll
much.
maybe even set it in the United States, right?
Yeah, perhaps.
But
That would be nice.
either way would work. Either way would work. That's for sure. So now you've
Hmm.
got the writing bug. You thinking about you toying with a sequel, but have you started writing it at all?
No,
No.
I don't want to tempt fate. I
Okay.
have some ideas in my head, and I think I've put so much into this, and I clean
Hmm.
to earn money for my cigarettes. So I'm, nobody's special over here. So I'm hoping this is going to earn some money, and then I can perhaps look at writing some more.
Gotcha.
There's certainly more that I can add to it. Yeah, but not
That's
yet. No, I think
oh,
I'd find that too much mentally.
sounds good. Well, you got one book out there. That's plenty. And
Yeah,
like I said,
yeah.
hopefully it winds up in the right hands
Oh
and
God, I hope so, Logan.
it gets developed for sure. And I hope our
Yeah.
viewers pick it up as well. Tell us, your book deals a lot about with the theme of female empowerment. What do you hope
Mm,
readers take away from this message?
it's a good question. Uh, Resilience, courage, not giving up, trusting your gut instinct, and also perhaps understanding or learning something new. The hints and tips section in the glossary of the shorthand. I think women, particularly if they're smelling a rat or their guts sort of saying, I'm not sure about my relationship at the moment, I'm going to refer to Bunny's book and see if I can find out some more truth. I think it could help a lot of people. And I don't necessarily mean that in a negative way, thinking, oh my God, we're going to divorce the man. Not at all. It could be a fun thing. A woman could be thinking, I want to spice up my sex life a little bit. I'm going to refer to that chapter and think, oh, okay, Bunny's got it. I can do that. Okay, we're going to have some fun tonight, baby. And so it could be, it's got a twist on everything. And I think that
Exactly.
the reason why, I mean, like the book, it's a thin book, it's a narrow book, so you can fit it in your bag, your briefcase. Even men could read it in the
Yep.
office,
I
on the
think
trading floor.
they would enjoy it for sure. Without a doubt. Tell me, I know your protagonist in the story is an expert at shorthand, for example. Do secretaries of that level even exist anymore? It doesn't even seem like,
Oh, it's such a shame. I don't think they do.
yeah.
I would, my dream would be if I could make this a success, I would. My life is such a mess. I have so much in my head going. I ask my questions. I've seen this before. I've seen that before. Why didn't they do that when I spoke to the police? Why didn't they do that? Um, and if I had money, I would definitely search for a secretary who could do shorthand and
Hmm.
was uh, had that skill. I think there are people out there, journalists definitely use it. I know still use it. Although if I had to do a speed test, it would be pretty bad.
Right.
Um, but no, I don't. I think most people, it's just everything's online.
Yeah,
Everything's just. I've just lost it
exactly.
all.
Maybe talk to text has kind of taken over the role of shorthand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah. I'm just showing my age now, and I think that's why I struggle so much.
it's amazing how easy technology changes, culture changes. The workplace has changed. The workplace that you write about was a male-dominated workplace, and the women are kind of forced to become master manipulators in a way. Tell us a little bit about that, what readers will find in your book about the male-dominated workforce and how women can learn or did manipulate that to the best of their
I think
ability.
I don't. I genuinely don't think it was a negative. I think majority of women, they still like to see a man being a man,
Yes.
and they like to. I don't. Any woman that I met, they never hated having a male boss or they enjoyed having, they had such a great place. And I think any woman, any mother who has to work at home, I think that's a damn sight harder than working in any office environment where you're going in and you're just, you can have it all and you can have some fun, and you're away from that environment. But a mother in the home having that 24/7, that's hard work.
Yeah.
But we never complained. It was what it was, what it was, and there was none of this. Dare I say it, it's a good thing that professionals, male and female, you get paid the same now, but it wasn't really a thing then. And I miss the fact that you can't send an old-fashioned CV in anymore, curriculum vitae, and you get a response within a week saying, we're sorry, or yes, we'd like to invite you for an interview. Now, I've written so many emails and I find it so deflating because everybody's like, no, not interested. And I think one part of me writing the book, and I think for people out there, is they probably understand the frustration I feel. No one listens anymore.
Yeah.
I would much rather keep my mouth shut and not say anything, because I feel that no one wants to hear me. No one wants to know me. And that's why I hide away, and I just can type quickly and write a book.
Yeah.
And that's sad, but I think the 80s had more of more sex appeal in it than 60s, 70s, and 80s actually than it certainly does now.
Yeah. Well, everything's so impersonal nowadays. When I was looking for jobs in the 80s and the 90s, I would actually pick up a phone and try to get the boss to pick up his phone, or talk to the secretary, try to schmooze her until she put the boss on the phone.
Is that how you got your job, Logan?
Yeah. I remember I was calling news.
Well, I'm relying on you here. I'm speaking to you now. So get me the...
Well, it's a mixed blessing. It's great that we are able to communicate like this virtually. But it was also nice. Like I said, I picked up the phone, I gave my pitch to the news director, and he's like, we need somebody, and overnighted my audition tape to him. And next thing you know, I'm working in Atlanta and covering the Olympics. So it was a different time, though. Everything's so impersonal now. Like you said, you could send out 1,000 emails. I'm not sure if any of them get open.
No, it's depressing.
Yeah,
it is. It's I find, and it's disheartening, and then I give up, and then I cry and I go on.
Right. Well, I think you've also funneled your energy into a positive direction with your book, because it's a great story you've written, and I think our viewers will really, really enjoy it. But certainly times have changed from the 80s and the 90s, when you could make a phone call, when you could talk to a secretary, when people were going out for lunch. I mean, you're talking about the isolation of a woman working from home nowadays who's got maybe kids running around. People used to go out to lunch, they'd socialize. I mean, there was something also wonderful about The Office, particularly in the 80s and 90s, don't you think?
Yeah, I think there was. And going out to have those long cigar smoking, rich food induced,
couple of martinis,
as I call sort of bullshit talk, like, I've been on the floor this morning, and hey, I've got some inside information and I can do this, and you want to buy shares on that, and the bear and the bull market, do. And it was all bollocks, quite frankly, but my God, it worked.
Right.
It worked, and I don't know how it worked, but it did. And whereas now everything can get manipulated, I think that's the one thing I hate more than anything about the whole online thing. I could probably Google you, and there would be one thing saying this, and there would be one saying that, and I'd ask you a question going, that's a little rubbish, Alex.
Right.
So it's difficult for people, or the population worldwide, globally, really what to believe anymore, and I think that's quite sad.
Yeah.
And I suppose in my heart of hearts, I don't believe anything until I see something tangible in front of me. And at the moment, what I see around me is not great.
Exactly. So, let me ask you, what's your favorite part of the book you wrote? Is there something when you wrote that you're like, wow, that was really good, or that was really funny, or that was really touching? What's your favorite part of it?
Oh, some of the funny parts, some of the torture, or the not torture is in some of the torture. I was perhaps thinking in my head, oh, I can see your face, pal, and I'm going to get you. But I also enjoyed writing some of the sexual bits, and it sort of had a glint in my eye. and some of the funny parts. There's funny things that I've witnessed over the years that I could still use now into something that I could maybe for my next book. But yeah, writing some of the amusing anecdotes made me smile. And there's a lot of truth in the book, in some of the things I've done. I mean, not with the Swiss Army knife, because that would have been wrong.
Right, exactly.
Albeit that she's Bunny's ally. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, you call your protagonist in the book Moneypenny. Talk to us a little bit about Moneypenny, why she's referred to that, and so forth.
Well, because I love Lois Maxwell, and in the early Bond films, I just thought she oozed sexuality, and I love the fact that there's that old-fashioned, the typewriter, and she was eavesdropping in on conversations. I can relate to that. I had my own office, and it was large, and I love the way that she smokes, and she's there's an element of me there that you want to be loved, and you want to have that. Everybody loves Bond, and everybody would love to have a Bond in their life, but they know deep down that isn't real. That doesn't happen. Things like that don't happen. But I think from a Moneypenny or a female point of view, when you're feeling sad or deflated, or you've really been let down in society, your imagination starts thinking about people that you could have some fun with.
Yeah.
And I think there was an element of sexuality in the earlier Bond films that I loved. Women were curvy, and they were voluptuous, and they smoked, and they were elegant, and there was a Hollywood glamour there. Whereas now the Bond films are incredible. I mean, the high-powered, they're action-filled, and everything. I think that I perhaps used some of the Moneypenny in the last few Bond movies, mixed it with Lois Maxwell, and there's an element of me in both. But I would say, from women and men, funny enough, reading the book, in some of the hints and tips glossary section, and I'm speaking from the heart now to all of you. Don't ever sign gagging orders. Don't ever sign official secrets acts. Don't ever sign non-disclosure agreements, because I've done all of that, and I've protected very bad people. And I think that was the sadness, and I cried so much about writing the book, is that I can remember me signing these documents, and I look now at these people who've made me sign them, and I thought, yeah, they knew the good side of me. They knew I wouldn't say anything. They knew I wasn't good at technology. They knew I couldn't prove anything, because I have it all in my head, what I've seen and heard. And that's when I crashed, and I thought, I can't prove anything. There's an element of a psychopathic Moneypenny in me in there that I would love. The film This Means War, with Reese Witherspoon and Tom Hardy and Chris Pine. I just sometimes think, and I was dreaming of that sometimes through the book. God, I'd love to be behind a computer just going, guys, we've got a secret. We've got to go and sort this out. I'm going to really screw these people over that have hurt me so much, because I know who they are, and I know where they are worldwide. But the reality is very different. One can't do that. And I'm too old. My God, I'll be dead by 60. I smoked too many. That's
funny. It's funny. You were talking about James Bond before, and how he represents, and Moneypenny represent, a swagger and a sexuality that doesn't exist anymore. But if you think about the most recent Bond film, it doesn't even exist in that Bond film. He's monogamous. He has a kid. He barely drinks a martini, and he dies at the end. So,
well, I feel sad in that last film, because Felix died. I love Felix.
Yeah.
But I feel I actually feel on a personal level, I feel for Daniel Craig actually in it, because you can almost see that he's tired of doing Bond.
Yeah.
My God, it must take it out of you. How fit must you be?
Yeah.
It's exhausting. Whereas that's why I think with Sean Connery and Roger Moore and Timothy Dalton, they were smoking. There was more of a reality about it. You're talking earlier, and people our age will be able to understand sort of the 60s, 70s, 80s. If you were going out for lunch and you were trading, or you were just doing a normal job, you wouldn't actually know if you were sitting opposite a spy or not.
Right.
Because that's the way I've used myself in the book, that sort of manipulative. You can sit there, you can wink, you can look at my cleavage, and I'm going to flirt with you, but I'm going to take some information from you. And that's exactly what I've done throughout my life. But I can't use it anywhere because nobody's ever believed me. Whereas now, if you see some fit guy coming in and you're thinking, Christ, there's elements of alarm bells that might be ringing. Oh, is this really true? Whereas then it was a bit harder, So I think the last Bond film, it was, albeit that I cried and it was sad and I felt for him, but I kind of wanted to put my arms around him going, you're screwed. It's time to retire and move on, that kind of thing. But I thought he was tired in the film. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think he was done with it. I think that's why he died at the end. He wanted to kill the role, but obviously Bond will be resurrected. Hopefully comes back as a good martini swilling, womanizing, gun brandishing Bond. I'm sick of this. I don't want a woke Bond. I want a real Bond. I know. Yeah. No, no woke
He's going to be sitting in that leather chair, and that's why I love the M's of this world, the original M's with and the whole Desmond Llewellyn, the Q. Mm-hmm. Oh, everyone wants one of those men in there. I want a DB9. I want one of those Astons. Oh, was it DB5? I think it was.
Exactly.
And because it's the way when I even drive my car and I get fed up with people annoying me, you put on a certain thing of music and you're thinking, okay, I'm gonna. Everyone has that imagination, and I can't believe anybody doesn't have that kind of imagination. It's just you don't want to get pulled over.
Exactly. Well, before we leave you here today, anything you'd like our audience to know, anything you want to wish for 2024? Tell us a little bit about what's going through your head as you approach this new year.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. I'd like the book to be a global success and make it into a film that everyone loves and they want to know when the next one's coming out. And I actually get some money in my bank and I'm able to have a facelift and a complete body makeover and things start changing with me. And I don't get so nervous. And I have a man that comes up to me and says, I'd love to talk to you. Not hide away. Yeah.
Well, that all sounds wonderful. Yeah. It all sounds very possible, very doable for 2024. I don't think you need the facelift. You look great. Don't worry about it. And but your book is wonderful. The author's name is A.M. Bunny. The name of the book, Secrets of a Secretary, Husbands, Lovers, and Associates. It's a humorous look, a nostalgic look at love, power, and 80s British office politics. You don't have to come from the UK to appreciate this book. These are universal themes that will appeal to Americans, Canadians, South Americans, anyone across the globe. It's a wonderful story. You will want to reread pages. They're that interesting, of a time gone by in many ways. So you will read this with a very, very nostalgic feeling as you read the pages of what an office was like in the 1980s and the 1990s. It could have been, and it was, quite a wild place at times. Alex, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
You're very kind, and I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I hope to speak to you soon.
Absolutely. A very Merry Christmas to you and a wonderful 2024. And look forward to speaking to you again down the road, and to the folks at home.
I hope so.
Yes, absolutely. I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.
Visit www.greatwritersmedia.com. Email us at info@greatwritersmedia.com. Call us at 877-600-5469. Subscribe now.